This happened on Valentine's Day a few years ago. My girlfriend and I had gone out for dinner that evening. Nothing fancy, just a small restaurant not too far from her place. We stayed longer than we planned, talking and killing time because neither of us wanted the night to end yet. By the time we left, it was already late, close to midnight. The roads were mostly empty, especially once we got out of the main part of town. There's only one highway that connects her area to mine. It's a 2-lane road with long stretches of trees on both sides. No houses, no streetlights for most of it. Just darkness and the sound of your tires on the pavement. About halfway through the drive, I noticed a white van parked on the side of the road. At first, I didn't think much of it. People pull over all the time for calls or car trouble. But as we got closer, girlfriend leaned forward and said something felt off. As we passed the van, we slowed down slightly without really meaning to. That's when we saw him. A man was standing at the back of the van, pulling a large black garbage bag out of it. The bag looked heavy. The way it dragged against the pavement caught my attention more than anything else. We watched in silence as the man lifted the bag and carried it toward the woods lining the side of the road, far enough that the trees swallowed him up. Neither of us said anything for a few seconds. My girlfriend finally broke the silence and asked if we should call someone. I told her we didn't actually know what we'd just seen. It could have been trash. It could have been animal remains. I didn't want to jump to conclusions. Still, the image stuck with me. We didn't stop. We kept driving. I dropped her off at her house about 20 minutes later. She asked me to text her when I got home, which wasn't unusual, but that night it felt heavier. When I pulled away, I realized something I hadn't thought about earlier. To get back to my place, I had to take the same highway. There wasn't another route. I told myself the van would be gone by now. Even if something weird had been happening, it wasn't my business. I just wanted to get home. As I approached the area where we'd seen the van, my grip tightened on the steering wheel. The van wasn't there. I felt a wave of relief and told myself I'd been overthinking it. About 10 minutes later, I noticed headlights in my rearview mirror. At first, I didn't pay attention. Cars pass each other all the time, but these headlights stayed behind me. Same distance, same speed. That's when I realized it was the same white van. My heart started racing. The road was empty, and there was nowhere to turn off. I told myself it could still be a coincidence, but deep down, I knew it wasn't. I pressed the gas harder. The van stayed right behind me. This went on for a couple of minutes. I kept checking my mirrors, waiting for the van to pull off or pass me. Then, just as suddenly as it appeared, the van turned off its headlights and disappeared into the darkness behind me. I didn't see where it went. I didn't slow down until I was back in town. When I finally pulled into my neighborhood, I felt stupid for how shaken I was. I parked, locked my doors, and went inside, telling myself the worst was over. I texted my girlfriend to let her know I was home safe. While getting ready for bed, I looked out my bedroom window toward the road, and there it was, the white van, parked across the street from my house. I didn't wait. I grabbed my phone and called the police immediately. I locked myself in my bedroom and stayed on the line, whispering while watching the van through the curtain. The operator told me officers were on the way. Before they arrived, the van drove off. The police searched the area when they got there, but they didn't find it. I explained everything. They took it seriously, but without a license plate number, there wasn't much they could do immediately. They checked security cameras from nearby businesses and intersections. The van showed up on several cameras, but it didn't have visible plates, no identifying marks, nothing they could track. The next day, officers went back to the area where my girlfriend and I had seen the man carry the bag into the woods. They searched for hours. Eventually, they found disturbed ground. After digging, they uncovered several black garbage bags. Inside was a body. It was a young woman. She'd been killed and buried shallowly, like someone was in a hurry. The police later identified her as someone who worked at a shopping mall not far from where the van had been parked. I gave multiple statements. So did my girlfriend. The police believed that after the killer realized we had seen him, he followed me home, possibly trying to scare me into staying quiet. Or worse, once he realized the police were involved, he disappeared. Months later, police arrested the woman's ex-boyfriend. They found evidence that he had hired someone to kill her, but the person who actually did it was never identified. They believe he left the city shortly after that night. Sometimes I think about how easily we could have gotten involved if we'd pulled over. So this happened a few years ago, when I was still living in the same house I'd been renting since my early 20s. I'd never had any problems there before, and that's part of why this whole thing still messes with me. That Valentine's Day, my girlfriend and I decided to keep things simple. No restaurants, no crowds. We invited a few of our longtime friends over for dinner, just people we trusted and had known for years. By around 8 p.m., everyone had arrived. There were 6 of us total, not counting my girlfriend and me. Music was playing, food was almost ready, and everything felt normal. One of my friends, Mark, didn't look great though. He was quiet and pale, barely touching his food. He said he felt dizzy and nauseous, and after a while, he could barely stand on his own. We didn't think too much of it at first. He said he hadn't eaten all day and probably drank too fast. 2 of our friends helped him to the spare bedroom and laid him down. We gave him some medicine, water, and told him to rest. If he felt better, he could rejoin us later. He thanked us and closed his eyes. After that, the night went on like normal. About an hour later, while everyone was laughing and talking in the living room, my girlfriend suddenly rushed over to me. She looked shaken, not joking around at all. She grabbed my arm and whispered that she had just seen someone standing on the roof. I laughed at first. Not because I thought she was lying, but because it sounded impossible. There was no ladder, no balcony, nothing near the house that someone could climb. I told her she probably saw a shadow or reflection from the streetlight. She insisted she'd seen a figure standing near the edge of the roof, just for a moment before it disappeared. I reassured her and told her not to worry. Eventually, she let it go, but she stayed close to me after that. A little later, one of my friends pulled me aside and asked a strange question. "Does anyone else live here with you?" I told him no, just me. He paused like he wanted to say something else, then shook his head and said it was nothing. I didn't push it. Around midnight, people started packing up to leave. That's when one of our friends mentioned she hadn't seen her boyfriend in a while. He'd been with us earlier, joking around like usual. The last thing she remembered was him saying he needed to use the bathroom. She tried calling him, but no one was there. At first, we assumed he stepped outside to take a call or went to sit in his car. We checked the driveway. His car was still there. That's when we started searching the house. We checked every room, the backyard, even the garage. But he was nowhere to be found. We checked on Mark in the spare bedroom. He was still there, still sick, barely awake. Some of our friends decided to take Mark to the hospital since his condition hadn't improved. The rest of us kept looking for the missing friend. But after another hour with no sign of him, a few people suggested he might have left on his own. His girlfriend didn't believe that. She was panicking by then. Eventually, her uncle came to pick her up, and one of our friends rode with her so she wouldn't be alone. We agreed to keep calling and let everyone know if we heard anything. None of us slept much that night. The next morning, we started calling everyone again. No one had heard from him. That's when his family got involved. After his girlfriend told them everything, we called the police. They arrived later that morning and began searching the house again, much more thoroughly this time. They asked questions, took notes, and didn't seem convinced by how little we knew. After a long time, one of the officers called me over. They'd found him. His body was in the crawl space beneath the house. The crawl space entrance was hidden behind a panel near the back of the house, low to the ground. They took his body away for further investigation and told all of us not to leave the city. Later, we were informed how he died. There were marks on his neck. He had died from choking. The police couldn't find any clear evidence of who did it. No fingerprints, no signs of forcing, no weapons were used. They questioned all of us multiple times, as if they believed someone in our group knew more than we were saying. My girlfriend begged me to move after that. She refused to stay in the house again. Eventually, I did move out. Nothing like this had ever happened. To this day, I couldn't understand how someone could get into my crawl space and disappear without leaving a trace. This happened a few years ago, back when I was living alone in a small rental house, not too far from where I grew up. I'd just gone through a breakup a couple months earlier. It wasn't explosive or dramatic, but it still hit me harder than I expected. We'd been together for a while, and a couple months later we separated. By the time Valentine's Day came around, I wasn't in a great headspace, but I wasn't falling apart either. My plan was to get home from work, order food, and put on a movie just to keep my mind busy that night. The house I lived in sat along a narrow residential road. Not a dead end, but traffic dropped off a lot at night. From my bedroom window, I could see the road clearly, especially under the streetlights. Around 6 p.m., while I was scrolling through my phone on the couch, I got a text from an unknown number. It said, "Happy Valentine's Day." At first, I assumed it was spam. I ignored it. A few minutes later, another message came through. "Did you really think today wouldn't matter?" That made me pause. I asked who it was. The reply came almost immediately. "You know who I am." I didn't respond. I already had a feeling, and I didn't like it. A minute later, my phone buzzed again, this time from a different unknown number. "You shouldn't ignore me." That's when I felt that familiar tight feeling in my chest. I typed back, asking what they wanted. The response didn't come right away. Instead, there was a knock at my front door. It wasn't loud, just a couple of firm knocks. I checked the time. It was just after 6:30. I wasn't expecting anyone, but I figured maybe a neighbor needed something. I walked to the door and opened it. No one was there. I stepped outside and looked up and down the road. Empty. No cars, no one walking. I shut the door and locked it. I went into my bedroom and looked out the window toward the road. That's when I saw them. Two girls were standing under the streetlight across from my house. They weren't talking to each other. They were just standing there, side by side, facing my house. Both of them were wearing light-colored hoodies and something over their faces. At first, I thought they were masks, but the longer I looked, the more unsettling they felt. Smooth, expressionless, almost like cheap costume masks. Except the eye holes were dark and deep. I couldn't see their eyes at all. I stepped back from the window, my heart starting to race. I grabbed my phone and tried calling one of my friends, but it went straight to voicemail. When I looked back out the window, the girls were gone. I went back into the living room and heard another knock, this time louder, more impatient. I walked to the front door and opened it. Again, no one. At this point, I locked myself in my bedroom. I didn't know what else to do. I tried texting the number back, demanding they stop, asking what they wanted. A message came through. "We just wanted to see you tonight." I put my phone down and tried to distract myself. I turned on my TV and put on a random movie, keeping the volume low so I could still hear what was going on around the house. About 20 minutes into the movie, I heard something that made my blood run cold. It sounded like a girl, crying, coming from somewhere inside the house. Soft, broken crying, like someone trying not to be heard. It was coming from the hallway. I froze, staring at my bedroom door. I called out, asking who was there. The crying stopped immediately. My phone buzzed. "Don't be scared." That's when I called my friend Mark and told him everything. He said he was on his way. I stayed in my room, gripping a baseball bat I kept under the bed. About 10 minutes later, I saw headlights pull into my driveway through the crack in my curtain. Then I heard Mark yelling my name from the porch. I stood up and was about to unlock my bedroom door when I heard it. A scream. Outside from the porch. It was Mark's voice. I opened the bedroom door and ran through the hallway, gripping the bat as tight as I could. The front door was wide open. I stepped onto the porch and saw Mark lying on the ground, not moving. Blood was running down the side of his head. At the same time, I saw movement in the corner of my eye. Two girls were running around the side of the house toward the backyard. They were fast. I dragged Mark inside and locked the door behind us. He was unconscious, but breathing. I called 911, barely able to explain what had just happened. Police and an ambulance arrived within minutes. Mark was taken to the hospital. The police searched my house, the yard, and the surrounding area. They didn't find the girls. The next morning, an officer came to the hospital to speak with both of us. He told us they believed it was an attempted murder, that the girls likely targeted me and attacked Mark when he showed up unexpectedly. There was no evidence tying it to my ex directly. They asked if I had any history of violence, any involvement in anything illegal. I told them the truth. I hadn't hurt anyone. I didn't have any enemies that I knew of. Mark survived, but he needed stitches and had a concussion. He doesn't like talking about that night anymore. I moved out of that house not long after. Every Valentine's Day since, I keep my phone on silent, my doors locked, and my curtains closed. Because whoever those girls were, they're probably still out there somewhere.